Yeah.
That is, yes. I was in Minneapolis this morning, and I was at Target Field Station, and a fellow, Steve McGregor, who's a developer and business leader, came up to me and said, "I've been at all the meetings in Rochester, and these plans are amazing." And I was like, "Oh, that's great to hear." And I was thinking, it's nice to hear people say it sort of without all of the, crowd around and
I was thinking that when they're not.
mind, so so it's good.
It's great.
So we have a nice turnout.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
I just wanted to say.
Oh, and there's a clicker here for the slides.
Let's see.
Here's the clicker for the slides. And, we only have 3 of them. So, yeah, you've got the goals.
Campbell, nice to see you. Nice to see you.
We're next to each other.
That's the first.
Yeah, that's good.
I can sit next to Michael.
I have no influence there. Like,
Somebody says.
Hi. Go get your. You can keep me in. You can keep me in order here.
Yeah, I wanted to say. I'm glad you did the whole thing. Glad at least you're still here.
saying the opposite.
Hi, I'm good.
I'm going to be with her.
I got your note about the baseball team. We've had such bad luck with having those kinds of teams here that it's just.
Oh, good. Okay.
And our workman's got
Okay, there's that.
I got mine in the mail. Here, take mine.
That's why I just printed out the agenda because I thought at least I know what's going on.
Do you want this one?
Well,
It's the same
we can
thing.
share because it's,
Okay.
I printed out this, but I printed out some of the stuff just to have it ready.
For
You
DMC.
guys ready?
Yeah.
I know it. I know it. Welcome, everybody. We're going to. I got some tea.
Yeah, I'll give you the executive summary. Oh, no.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to convene this meeting of the Destination Medical Center Corporation on Thursday, April 23rd, 2015. I call this meeting to order, and I will start with roll call. R.T. Ryback.
Here.
Susan Ronnie.
Here.
Bill George. Bill George is absent tonight. Ardell Brady.
Here.
Jim Beer.
Here.
Ed Fresca.
Here.
Jim Campbell.
Here.
Great, we have a quorum. Thank you all for being here tonight. It's wonderful to see you, although you're a little bit in shadows with the way the lights are, so we'll just, we'll have to do our very, very best. The first item on our agenda, colleagues, is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. We are now ready for the public hearing for the development plan, and I'd like to just start out by making a few opening remarks. First of all, I want to thank all of the members of the community that are here with us today. It is wonderful to see you all here. We are here tonight to have a public hearing on the development plan. This plan has been available and circulating since mid-December, and since that time we've heard many, many comments about the plan, both at our meetings as well as 2 public hearings that the city has held. And the city has now approved the plan, and now it comes back to our board for final adoption. And I want to just note one logistics thing to make sure that everybody is clear about this. I believe that we all are. But because the city has approved the plan, I just want to note that any changes to the plan that our board might want to make would require then additional city approval and so forth. So just kind of keep that in mind. Our organizing statute requires us to hold a public hearing before we can adopt the plan, and so this hearing is really the culmination of 18 months of work and imagination and creativity and sharing of ideas and participation by literally hundreds of people in the community, as well as the really great work of this board. I want to just take a moment to thank this board for all of the work that you have done on this. But of course, this is only the beginning of what comes next, and but it's sort of a pause for all of us as we sit here. I want to also just note, as I look out at the audience here today, that the public participation in this process is reminds me of the great spirit of civic engagement that is characteristic of Minnesota in the very, very best sense of the word. We have just been really blessed to have so much input and feedback, and I can say with 100% certainty that this plan is better as a result of that. So thank you very much. Now, the public hearing, I just want to say a couple of things about this. We are going to keep a record of who speaks at this hearing, so I would like everybody who approaches the microphone to please make sure that you say your name. We also have sign-up sheets in the back, and it would be extremely helpful if you'd like to speak that you sign up first. I've got a sign-up sheet right here for us to get going, and that way we can keep track of who's spoken, and we also can make sure that everybody who wants to speak has an opportunity to speak. In addition, colleagues, we've received written comments that have come in through websites and email and we maybe will have additional written comments submitted today. And those are all available to the board, and I believe they're also all available to the public. Is that right, Kathleen? At the end of the hearing, when we're completed, when everybody has spoken who wishes to speak, we'll close the hearing, and then colleagues will have the option to move to adopt the development plan tonight if we so choose. We can decide that when we're ready. I'd like to ask people as you come forward to please do your best to be concise and to not go on too long in order to make sure that everybody in the audience has an opportunity to speak. And we're going to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak once in the event that people would like to come back up and say something additional afterwards. So hopefully that'll run smoothly and everybody will have a chance to express themselves. So with that, unless there are questions or comments from the board, I am going to formally open the public hearing and invite the first person on our list to come forward, and that is Reverend Dr. Teresa Roberts. And just so you know, the next person on the list is Anna Ritchie. Please come forward. Welcome. Good evening.
Can you hear me? Oh, there
Yes,
it is.
we
Oh,
can.
there we go. Okay. Yes, I'm Reverend Dr. Teresa Roberts, and I'm the senior pastor at the Congregational United Church of Christ off of Highway 52. And I'm also an active participant in an organization in Rochester. I've only been here for 3 years, but it's called RAIL, the Rochester Area Interfaith Leaders. And I went to a recent event that they held, an opportunity to talk with the director, Jim Fry, of the Salvation Army and the ministries that they have here, especially to the poor, in a very pivotal transportation corridor in Rochester. And he raised a number of concerns for us, one primarily being that no social services are even mentioned in the 700-page document that you all have come up with a plan for the city. And I speak on behalf of my congregation before you, saying that there's extreme concern for social services for this population of people who receive tremendous services, not just from Salvation Army, but from many, many organizations right within the heart of downtown Rochester. And we are just very concerned that these populations may be removed because they wouldn't fit the profile of this beautiful downtown area that's been so beautifully displayed before us. And we are here to advocate on behalf of the poor that we serve and that Mayo Clinic serves, and because we have a relationship with them to support them in housing and in food and in needs that they have and healing that they need to get. So that's my concern primarily that I bring to you, and I would like an explanation. I think we deserve it, to why this has not been addressed at all. I would suggest that you explain why there is not a comprehensive social impact study that's been done. For the size of Rochester, the third largest city in the state of Minnesota, to not have a comprehensive social impact study that refers to many different areas, justice areas, et cetera, that will allow us to deal with increased population in incredible compassionate ways. I think there's a lot of great minds, maybe even out here, and certainly within our city and our district, that would really love to create almost something like a Good Samaritan Center right next to, you know, these main functionings of Rochester's Destination Medical Center, right within the heart of it, to reach out in compassion. So that's my points. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anna Ritchie. And then the next person on the list is Nancy Slocum. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Board. Thank you so much for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Anna Ritchie, and I live at 137 8th Street Northeast. I'm the Southern Minnesota Community Coordinator for Conservation Minnesota, but I'm also serving on the Rochester Energy Commission. Conservation Minnesota submitted our comments to your board asking that the inevitable increases in energy usage as a result of all the new infrastructure proposed with the DMC project be supplied as much as possible by clean, renewable energy sources. Our survey of residents showed upwards of 68% support for this, and it's another opportunity, we feel, for the Mayo Clinic to distinguish itself as a world leader in innovation and health. But as a citizen of Rochester and a member of one of its public commissions tasked with crafting the guidelines and vision for our energy future, it's also my sincere hope that the public and private interests can come together in this, and that this vision be developed in an open, cooperative, and transparent way. With so much public money invested in the project, and with the incredible impacts the decisions will have locally and regionally, I believe that an inclusive approach is the best way to ensure the best interests of the community and the clinic are being met. I hope that as the process moves forward, you will continue to make decisions around consensus and involve the experienced and dedicated citizens who are already giving their time and efforts towards so many of the issues at stake. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nancy Slocum. And then after Nancy is Richard Olin. Welcome.
Oh.
There you go.
And thank you very much. I'm Nancy Slocum, 621 Fifth Avenue Southwest. And I couldn't not speak because I've spoken at every other one. I think you are obviously, at a big point, a big change in the project. And I just would like to, thank you for what you've done so far, for sure. But I'd also like to wish you the very, very best of luck and clear deliberation, in particular regarding the properties that you have to evaluate and the effect on the people that live in the area and on the people that are going to move into the buildings that are built. I'm still very concerned about heritage preservation, of course. I hope that we can keep the buildings that are worth keeping and reuse them and have them help to shine in our beautiful city. I'm also concerned about affordable housing. I would really like it if there's a way to put a mandate toward a 20% affordable housing for any buildings that take on any government funding, like TIF funding or something else. We don't have that as a rule in this town, and I know other places do, and I think that would be a good thing to move forward with. And the other thing is I would really like to see beautiful architecture. And I'd like to see the best for our town. We really could do, very well now that we have this chance. And if we can be deliberative and do that, best of luck to you all. Thank you very much for what you've done.
Thank you very much. Next up is Richard Olin, and then following Richard is Jerome Fearson. Welcome.
Madam Chair, council members, thank you for letting me speak. I'm the Elevate Rochester guy, as all of you know. I'm anxious to have the opportunity to put an elevated transit system into the plan, And I've been told at many of these meetings that I've attended that the mode is still up in the air of how we're going to do transit. So I want to keep in front of you the advantages of an elevated transit system. Coincidentally, this week, the MinPost article entitled "Why Streetcars Are Losing Their Appeal as a Mass Transit Option" points out the advantages of streetcars in Portland, Oregon, but not so much other places. And I'd like the council members, or maybe a subset of the group, to form a transit committee that I could speak to with the people who built the People Mover in Indianapolis. I think that's the best example of connecting 3 hospitals in a way that meets some of the regulations and requirements of ADA, and also to keep people out of the weather. The last time I was here, we had 10 inches of snow, and they plowed the snow right into the middle of the street where the streetcar tracks would be. It's going to be a real problem where Rochester has more than 6 inches of snow 5 months out of the year. Also, in concert with what Ms. Ritchie was saying, an elevated system with a maglev transit linear synchronous motor system would be much more efficient in use of energy. It would cost between 1/3 and 1/2 of what a light rail system would. And so I hope that at some point we can get the 6 agencies that I've counted that have an input into this together, maybe to designate 1 or 2 people into a transit subcommittee. And I would be willing to host a meeting with the Schwager Davis people who built the People Mover in Indianapolis, and they're willing to come to Rochester to speak to those people. So I hope to have that opportunity in the future, and thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you very much. Jerome Pearson, how do you do? And then following that, let's see, having a little trouble reading, oh, is that Mr. Schwartz, Clint Schwartz, maybe? Please, go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair and council members. My name is Jerome Ferson. I'm the president of the United Way of Olmsted County, and here tonight on behalf of the Community Networking Group, which is an affiliation of local organizations that submitted a letter for your consideration in advance. Hopefully you have it on before you. I just wanted to read the letter into the record tonight and then add some additional names that came in after the letter was submitted. So since April 2013, private nonprofit and public human and social service providers, local philanthropies, and elected officials have been meeting informally to understand the scope and impact of Destination Medical Center plan and other initiatives on a range of community services and agencies. Convening regularly as the Community Networking Group, we have been especially focused on how DMC and other planning can help us advance as a healthy and inclusive community where opportunity and responsibility are broadly shared. With the framework of the DMC development plan now drafted, the process has reached the stage where we can explore how to productively align our shared community concerns and various mission responsibilities with those of the DMC Corporation Board. We believe that an excellent way to begin this alignment is to endorse the Olmsted County Public Health Services Advisory Board recommendations to the Destination Medical Center plan presented to the Rochester City Council at its March 23, 2015 public hearing. In brief, the PHSAB assumes that economic development initiatives like DMC can promote or hinder individual health choices and recommends that social determinants of health, such as housing, education, income, transportation, and others, be included as key factors in evaluating the development's proposals. We agree with the Public Health Services Advisory Board. Additionally, we would emphasize that DMC projects will have direct, substantial, and sustained impact on the well-being of our families and the vitality of our community in which we live and work. The nature of these impacts will be determined by whether or not project approvals result in, for example, developing a public transit system for efficient access to human and social services as well as work and entertainment, building housing that is inclusive and affordable for all who live and work within the DMC district, promoting employment that reflects our diverse community, and providing for those community services that address the social impacts of low-income jobs. As the DMC Corporation Board and its Economic Development Agency continue to prepare and implement the development plan to establish Rochester as a destination medical center, we would like to work with you to create policies that bring potential health and social impacts into the decision-making process, to help you create project approval criteria that help evaluate the potential health and social impacts of a project before it is built, to create metrics that gauge progress towards positive health and social outcomes that promote and sustain an inclusive and healthy community. As signatories to this letter, we indicate our concurrence with its summary of our common vision. We also express our desire to participate in the implementation of the DMC plan. We look forward to considering with you how we might best establish and conduct that participation. Sincerely, this letter is signed by myself, Jerome Ferson, United Way President and Chair of the Community Networking Group, along with Joanne Stormer, Rochester Area Foundation President, and then organizations signing on include NAMI Southeast Minnesota, Rochester Senior Center, Families First, Rochester Area Family Y, Family Service Rochester, Olmsted County Community Services, Olmsted County Housing and Redevelopment Authority, Aldrich Nursery School, American Cancer Society, Rochester Public Library, Recovery is Happening, Fernbrook Family Center, Channel 1, Boys and Girls Club of Rochester, Girl Scouts River Valleys, Diversity Council, Planned Parenthood Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota, the Intercultural Mutual Assistance Association, IMAA, Project Legacy, Chicano Latino Affairs Council, otherwise known as CLAC, and as well as the Alliance of Chicanos, Hispanics, and Latin Americans, also known as ACLA. With that, the letter is also signed by individuals of the steering committee that make up the Community Networking Group, and that concludes my remarks this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gerson. Mr. Schwartz, is there a Mr. Schwartz here? Welcome, come on up. And then following Mr. Schwartz is Barry Skolnick.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Welcome.
I've only followed the Post Bulletin, haven't been to any meetings or anything, and I kind of have a yes or no question for you folks. What I'm used to, I'm from the Twin Cities, and there you have park and ride lots, a few ramps, and then they take the buses in. We're going to go one step further and bigger and better, I guess, elevated transit system. My question is, as this elevated transit system spokes out, where will it end up? Will it be in public ramps and parking, or will it only be for private ramps where, say, only Mayo Clinic employees can get on the trolley and ride? I'm sure the answer, anybody can ride the trolley, but the final destination is that private or public parking? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Barry, welcome. And following is Andrea Kipe, K-I-E-P-E.
Hi, I'm Barry Skolnick at 15 First Street Southeast. First, I'm going to read a statement. I'm chair of the Mayor's Advisory Committee on Transportation, and I'm going to read a statement that the committee prepared, which is as follows. Whereas the Citizens Advisory on Transit is a committee of citizens appointed by the Mayor and Common Council of Rochester to advise in the development of public transportation in our community, and whereas the Citizens Advisory on Transit recognizes that the Destination Medical Center plan should provide a roadmap for the future development of downtown Rochester, and that public transportation is an important element of the DMC plan, therefore, after consideration of the public transportation elements of the DMC plan, the advisory has identified the following issues and concerns. One, the proposed relocation of the downtown bus stop from its current location on 2nd Street Southwest to the 3rd and 4th Avenue Southwest corridor, as well as the use of Central Park Station for city buses, is not acceptable to us. The proposed 3rd and 4th Avenue location conflicts with the ingress and egress of Mayo's primary patient parking ramps and other loading activity associated with the Gonda and Charlton buildings. Either of these proposed locations would increase the walking distance and complicates the transfer between buses for riders and moves the transit a further distance from the downtown core. Further study is required on how the transit component will impact people with disabilities. We believe this should be addressed more fully. The DMC plan does not address the movements and delivery of goods to service the downtown, which without accommodation will increase congestion and impede public transit vehicles. In addition to what the committee did, I have the following statements. The DMC plan is conceptual, but some concepts need to be added to or altered in the implementation phase. As a roadmap for the future, the library needs to be on the map in the downtown area and not just a footnote in the text. Imagine if the government center or the Gonda building was left off the map. We need to show sooner rather than later the location of the library. I believe we need to not only meet minimum ADA standards, but we need to exceed these standards and be a model for the United States for people with disabilities and the frail. And I don't think the plan addresses that as well as it could. We need to also be a city that is winterized so our residents and visitors do not struggle to get around. That is why I have advocated such ideas as more heated sidewalks and better and quicker snow removal than we have now. Our public transit system should result in more effective transfers and not result in time added to people's rides. I'm 100% behind the Discovery Square project and support a lot of the DMC, but I just wish the plan would include more elements that talk about taking care of the quality of life of the people of Rochester. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Andrea? Welcome. Following Andrea, we have Ben Creo.
Madam Chair, Board, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Andrea Keepy. I live at 318 6th Avenue Southeast, and I'm with the Rochester Sierra Club. First of all, I just want to echo the comments that you received earlier from Conservation Minnesota on the need to move forward as aggressively as possible with achieving energy efficiency and renewable energy goals as part of the DMC phases going forward, and especially to her comments about the need for transparency. One of the things that was discussed at the last public hearing that was also a city council meeting is that committees would be formed on some of these open questions, which I will discuss further along in my comments. Who will be on these committees? When will they form? Have they already formed? Are discussions already taking place? How can the public be involved in this? These are really important questions, and we will need your leadership going forward on that to ensure that the public interest is served as all of these literally billions of dollars worth of investments take place in our city. I would also like to substantially support the comments of Reverend Roberts and the representative from United Way. One can envision a scenario where DMC development fulfills the worst stereotypes of gentrification. It pushes out some of the diverse elements of our community that receive social services downtown, as well as our multicultural, multilingual working poor who frankly support the work of our community, without whom our hotels, our clinics, our regular retail businesses simply could not function. I don't think that that scenario is inevitable, but it will require our work to put forward the needs of those marginalized people and not forget about them, and so I would urge you to take leadership on that as well. So we substantially support those comments, although they are not our top issue. So thank you for your attention on that. I know that you are very close to completion of a very long process, and frankly, I'm looking forward to implementation and what we can get started on to start making these investments, these buildings, and these community centers a reality for Rochester. I have already, again, in that last public hearing, submitted substantive and detailed public comments on behalf of Sierra Club, where we laud the decision to increase transit infrastructure downtown, to make a significant commitment to pedestrian and biking infrastructure in downtown, and frankly, virtually everything in your transportation plan is wonderful, and we support it. We do have some tweaks, we have some suggestions. I will not belabor those now. And there's still a lot of parking in downtown. What I would like to say going forward on the implementation phase is several questions. I'm brought up in those substantive comments before that there does seem to be an error in the projections for energy efficiency as put forward in the plan. Your goals, your ambitious goals in the plan fall below current state law. I'm assuming that will be corrected at some point, but it would be a nice show of faith to see something concrete on that. And as many commenters have said before, Rochester should not play it safe on DMC. We should expect the best. We should push forward, not only because it's good for our air and water, not only because it's good for our community, not only because it will save Mayo and all of the new private developers who move in a ton of money to push forward with the absolute gold standard, or platinum standard, on energy efficiency and conservation, but because that will enhance the brand that the whole DMC project is trying to put forward. Something that the commenters from United Way brought up when they discussed this idea of social determinants of health. We can preserve and enhance our brand as the health city, the forward-thinking, highly educated, technologically advanced city by really just pushing the envelope in every phase, making every project more and more outstanding on its environmental and environmental health standards. So I would urge you all to take leadership on that. There are some other open questions about district heating. Again, in your plan, it says that you support the idea generally. That is not enough, especially as infrastructure starts being ripped up and put down. So I just urge you to go forward on that and work with the City Council and RPU. Maybe we need a city resolution. Maybe we need a sustainability director to be found room for in the budget. Some sort of concrete commitment from the city so that we know the direction we're going and there's a path forward on district heating. Same with renewables, same with green buildings. We had some public statements that DMC projects are going to be LEED certified, and that's wonderful, but again, some sort of firm, tangible commitment from the city would be wonderful. And again, it will give the people who are thinking about investing in these new projects certainty and some guidelines for how they can proceed. And I'm actually a very visual person, so I'm going to ask you to turn around a little bit and just look at this picture that's behind you. And I would just like to suggest, in addition to all these specific things I'm asking you to do, this picture kind of shows the sort of opportunities I would ask you to think about going forward. Here we have an extremely modern scenario of what our downtown could look like. And I mean, and in some ways it's almost futuristic. And you see this beautiful shining glass canopy being suspended over a public area. Now, I don't know enough about engineering to just design it and whip it up for you, but if you're going to put shiny glass over an area to connote that we're futuristic, we're advanced, we're progressive, why can't it be covered in solar panels so that it's beautiful, it connotes all these brand things we want to connote, and it also does something important for the community, and we can get some work out of it. And so little things like this, all the way up to huge multi-million-dollar developments, that kind of thinking needs to go in. How can we kill two birds? Well, that's not a good Sierra Club thing to say.
Don't say that.
How can we accomplish many objectives with the same dollar?
Repair two wings.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Please consider this. Please consider this in a friendly way. I will be pushing you as hard as I possibly can, but in a Minnesota nice way, to achieve these. And if you, again, Ms. Ritchie from Conservation Minnesota mentioned, the city is behind you. The majority of people wants these kinds of projects, and frankly, with the money coming into this town, we can afford it. So thank you for your time and effort, and I will let the microphone go.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next, we have Ben Creo, and then following Ben, we have Dave Ferber. Welcome.
My name is Ben Creo. 30 years ago, my wife and I moved to Rochester for her to continue pursuing her medical education. Prior to that, I worked for a venture capital-backed startup in the Boston area and at Harvard Business School. I love to start things. I've been working with entrepreneurial groups in town like BioEM and Journey to Growth's Entrepreneurship Committee to foster and encourage a vibrant entrepreneurial system Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my thoughts today about this amazing town we call home now, Rochester, and how to encourage this entrepreneurial community. I'd like to talk to you today about building a surfboard. About 30 years ago, policymakers in the state of North Carolina realized that a new economic wave was coming, and it was called biotechnology. They embarked on a concentrated effort to ride that wave, creating institutions and incentives to encourage a budding biobusiness sector in North Carolina. Today, North Carolina is the third leading state behind California and Massachusetts for biotechnology. North Carolina. North Carolina saw a budding innovation and rode an economic wave. Today, I believe it will be possible for Rochester, Minnesota to ride the economic waves of the next 20 years. Regenerative medicine, individualized medicine, the integration of agriculture and biotechnology, these are likely ways of innovation that will propel economic growth that not only creates high-paying jobs, but is highly sustainable. It's a wave we can all ride on and will benefit the entire town, but to ride these waves, we need to build a great surfboard today. So let's build a surfboard that everyone can ride on. Mayo Clinic, budding biobusinesses, and entrepreneurs in non-medical fields. What might this surfboard look like? Well, here are some factors that strike me as important. First, I noticed there are many studies being commissioned as part of DMC. I'd encourage you to commission a study examining what these next waves of innovation are likely to be. North Carolina was able to do this in the 1980s, and it built a great surfboard we now know as the Research Triangle. So why can't we do this today and create the infrastructure now with DMC to ride these waves? If we're building an economic engine for the next 20 years, let's build it in light of economic trends that will lead to long-term prosperity for everybody. Secondly, let's find ways in the creation of physical space to create innovation nexuses, spaces where folks from Mayo, UMR, independent labs, budding businesses can bump into each other, gather, and share ideas. And Discovery Square is obviously a key component here. Now, if regenerative medicine and individualized medicine are future waves, let's place these centers in vibrant spots in these nexuses so that researchers there can bump into entrepreneurs, academics, students, so that creativity and new connections can be formed easily and naturally. Have low-cost, shared physical space connected to businesses, other services, and schools. And thirdly, like any good investor, diversify, diversify, diversify. All the community's economic eggs are in one basket, and it's a great basket called Mayo Clinic, but it's still one basket. And we need to make that basket out of titanium, which is what DMC is doing. But we also need to build other baskets. And some of those baskets must be filled with other medical and bio businesses, because these are the upcoming waves of innovation. But let's ask, what other waves might we ride as well? Waves not related to medicine. We need to continue to diversify into other economic areas, particularly those related to technology, IT, the integration of agriculture and technology, and other such fields. And I encourage the infrastructure DMC build to support that. Now, I go to many meetings, and I realize some places are great for meetings, and other rooms don't work as well. Now, many people are working to diversify the economy in town, but DMC is the only major player building the meeting rooms in which everyone will work. So rooms need to be built that suit all kinds of entrepreneurial businesses, and not only those related to medical fields. In Rochester, I'm just so excited. We have an amazing opportunity today to build a future of long-term prosperity and success. And I kindly ask the DMC to consider how it can encourage entrepreneurship in town and entrepreneurship of all types. Let's make Rochester a great, fantastic place for entrepreneurs of all types. Let's build a great surfboard, and let's have fun riding it together. If there's anything I can do to help, please let me know. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Dave Ferber is up next, and then following Dave is Nancy Zaworski.
Good evening. My name is Dave Ferber. I represent the Rochester Salvation Army. In case you don't know, we're the other organization celebrating 150 years with a shield as our brand.
Excellent.
I've been with the Salvation Army a number of years. I'm a native of Rochester. We employ a lot of people here in Rochester, but we have 6 different facilities, and 5 of those are residing within the DMC footprint. And I do apologize if it sounds like the social services sector is ganging up tonight. It's very nice to have that collaboration, and it shows the vibrancy really of this community and the way that happens. We've existed to serve Rochester and the surrounding area for 119 years ourselves, and we're proud to be part of the worldwide organization celebrating that 150th year. We've witnessed and participated in the growth of Rochester. We've been and are at once a stakeholder, an interest group, a Mayo Clinic partner with our Good Samaritan Health Clinic, along with other medical institutions, a legacy institution, and perhaps a little bit dramatically, we're one of the mice in the dance of these elephants. And so that's the thing that we're looking out for. We've always found a way to meet human needs for those experiencing homelessness, in times of disaster, for our low-income neighbors, for those seeking assistance with economic, spiritual, and health care needs, and much more. The Rochester Salvation Army Social Services, and those from our community partners, as you see, there's quite an extensive list of those, we represent a key interest in the community, in the region, and that may not necessarily be evident in all of these pretty pictures that are put up about DMC. These are designing the next Rochester, and that's our task as social services providers, is to really come up with the next Salvation Army and the next United Way, however that we need to do that. We all continue to provide a sustainable model of private charitable work for with minimal dependence on government support care for the thousands of individual needs that we cover. We believe we'll thrive on the generosity of those benefiting from this plan. The population of families and individuals we serve will only grow on this compelling vision of Destination Medical Center. However, without as much successful economic participation as implied by the plan, those are the people that we serve, we feel that they may not all have the price of admission to get into this. I was reminded this morning at the Mayo Clinic Community Breakfast that it was about 100 years ago or more that people in distant cities were put on trains bound for Rochester in hopes that the Mayo or the Mayo brothers, the Mayo's clinics, could somehow save them or give them a new life. And the Salvation Army was there as well 119 years ago. Today, we have existed and we still continue to fulfill our mission to meet those human needs without discrimination. And in Rochester, it's up to our leadership to consider the impact of the development plan and how we strategically will build that next Salvation Army. We remember our legacy and work diligently to maintain the present needs of our community by employing all the funds entrusted to us by those donors. So what we're asking for really is just to consider, not just for us, but for all social services, the process to consider these social services, the future for the organizations like the Rochester Salvation Army that will be directly impacted by your decisions. We sincerely hope that God grants you the wisdom, courage, and guidance not just to do DMC, but to do the most good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Nancy Zaworski, thank you very much. And then following Nancy is Patrick Dean.
Good evening, and Nancy Zaworski, 1850 Terracewood Drive, Northwest. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll keep this brief because I echo some of what you've already heard tonight. The DMC plans will move forward, and everyone in the community is very excited about it. There are numerous tangible benefits that will be gained, and along with all of that growth are intangible aspects that I ask the board to consider. The impacts and aspects to be considered include what you've already heard, issues related to not just affordable housing, but all housing, and other economic justice issues that rise with any community that grows. And we will be growing, but there will also be aspects that are related specifically to DMC, and that's why I'm asking you to consider some of this. And we've talked about the social services. You know, we need to talk about the actual hows and whys and wheres and how they're going to be able to deliver those services. So just in brief, I ask you as part of your due diligence and stewards of this project to seriously consider all the aspects and impacts of DMC, and bottom line is to ask you to consider a full social impact statement considering all those other aspects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Patrick Dean. Then following Patrick Dean, I believe it's John, you signed in right before Kevin. Yeah. Okay, I couldn't quite read your handwriting. Mr. Dean, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and Board. My wife and I invested in property at 220 South Broadway some 10 years ago with the idea that we'd be part of the Rochester Urban Village. However, our property is not showing up on the concept maps, and this dreamlike concept map, I think, requires a wide-awake answer to people who live and think about the urban village and don't see their property existing. I'm talking about 67 housing units at 220 South Broadway, many of which are occupied by elderly, retired, on fixed income individuals who look with anxiety at the future and say, what happens to us? Where are we going to be? We don't exist, we've just evaporated. So I think it's time for all of the concept of the urban village to recognize who else lives downtown and will be affected. And I think some answers are due. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Ward? Greetings. No damage done?
Good evening. I'm Kevin Lund. I live at...
I'm so sorry. I couldn't quite forgive me.
Is it somebody else that's supposed to be here? Oh, all right. Lieutenant Governor and Madam Chair Smith, members of the board, I'm Kevin Lund. I live at 511 15th Avenue Southwest here in Rochester. I don't know if there's somebody that's assisting tonight, but I've got some handouts that are clipped together that I'd like to go over a particular portion of the draft with you. So I'll just approach here. While those are being handed out, I do need to make note that I'm appearing here as a private citizen this evening. Having said that, I'd like to reflect upon some of the comments that have been made here this evening about the social infrastructure that I deal with every day as a juvenile court judge here in Rochester. There are days where the weight of that responsibility is crushing. There are underserved and unserved portions of our community that I fear will grow with this plan, and as others have more eloquently stated, we need to be mindful of the impact that this growth has upon the people that, well, in past generations, were the backbone of the community, and they still are the backbone of the community. They're really the unsung people that work in food service and make the beds and do all the other small tasks that make this such a wonderful community and Mayo Clinic the medical mecca that it is. What I'd like to reflect upon tonight with respect to my handout is a little more specific and probably in many respects a lot less important than the social aspects of our community that may be impacted by the growth. I'm specifically dealing with section 6.5 as it relates to heritage preservation planning. As a backdrop, I've been involved in heritage preservation efforts for close to 35 years. And what I've done in what I call Draft A is redlined some portions of the document that I believe should be deleted. And I'll get into my reasons for that in a second. I've also added some language in here, and those of you that do legislative work or government work can understand the highlighted portions or the underlined portions. I think those are significant in terms of how we identify the magnificent Plummer Building or the iconic atmospheric Chateau Theater, and I appreciate the anticipated DMCC support of that project. Really, my comments relative to this draft or the original draft that you have as part of your development plan is that it's based upon the work of the 106 group. And I can unequivocally state that that work is not only preliminary, but it's also woefully incomplete. and the multiple references to their findings and conclusions in the DMC development plan give it a measure of veracity and gravitas it is not entitled to. It was generated with no public input, no consultation with local historians, no public discussion. References to it should be deleted in their entirety for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is that they did not, and I will repeat, they did not analyze the 200 properties that are represented in the document you have before you. And that is the foundation of the references to their work product that is contained in this document. I'm going to give you two examples. I don't mean to belabor the point, but this is important to a lot of people in this community. By way of example, the inventory dismisses the Kelly Building on the corner of 4th Street and South Broadway and the Olds Fishback Building, which is the Payne Furniture, as lacking in historical significance and unworthy of further evaluation. Built in 1858 by Dr. Lewis Kelly, one of the first physicians in the city of Rochester, the Kelly Building was the first brick commercial building constructed. It is our community's DNA. The bricks were burned at Whitcomb's Kiln in East Rochester and were hauled by ox teams across a ford near the corner of the building. When the town fathers platted the city, they began their measurements at the southwest corner of this building. The upstairs rooms were rented to David and Cyrene Blakely, who founded Rochester's first newspaper, the Rochester City Post, in 1859. The building was one of the relative few to survive Rochester's 1883 cyclone. The Olds and Fishback store was the epicenter of the cyclone relief efforts, where the destitute were fed and homeless provided beds and cots. There can be little doubt that Mother Mary Alfred Mose and Dr. William Worrell Mayo provided aid and comfort at the store. The building's facade has long been considered one of the finest examples of French Second Empire architecture in our state. Had they been privy to this information, the 106 group would certainly have recommended the Kelly Building, along with the Olds and Fishback Building, for further evaluation, as they clearly fit one of the local historic contexts they identify, Rochester's early settlement, 1854 to 1889. As such, I would urge this board to determine that this report is unsuitable for inclusion in such an important, and no pun intended, historic document. If it is included, I would suggest that you go to draft B that I've presented to you. And draft B, there's only one deletion. It's the last sentence of the first paragraph. And it reads as follows: beyond specific properties, the plan further recognizes the role of the historic fabric in enriching the character of the downtown, best noted at 3rd Street. And then there's a photograph of 3rd Street. If you flip the page and you look at the document that you're being asked to adopt tonight, under properties for further evaluation, guess what? None of the buildings on historic 3rd are considered for further evaluation. I think anyone that you talk to that grew up in this community, and more importantly, people that come and visit and treat in this community, would find that astonishing. So I think that there's a measure of accuracy that you're all striving to achieve. And I think if you adopt this plan, this specific provision, without making some modifications and having some reasonable discussion about it, this is an inaccurate document and doesn't reflect, it's not truthful. It doesn't reflect what should be preserved and how we should go about business from this point forward as part of the DMC planning process. I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Next up is John Creasel, pardon me. Welcome, John. And following John, we have Julie Friesel.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. What's been said this evening is very historic, and I don't make that into a pun. The efforts of everyone here in this community certainly is very important in giving you the input of the community. I won't go into great detail because it's been better said by everyone that's come before me. But this incredible city has been incredible for many, many years, since 1858. It has been moving forward with the help of the citizens to continue to make it incredible. We hope today that this community could be and should be and must be the think tank, not only for the United States, but for the world. We have that within our grasp. We must go beyond standards set by others. Those standards are not high enough. We must take care of the needs of everyone that serve this community and come and visit this community. If we call this a world-class wellness center, we must pay attention to the air within this community as well as the water. We have not been good stewards of the air, and certainly not good stewards of the water. I'm going back about 40 years ago when we were talking about the expansion of our waste treatment facility. We continue to use drinking water in our toilets. If we're talking about infrastructure, our infrastructure must include better use of our water sources. We must have use of gray water. We must do a better job of filling up our valley, our river valley that we live in, with the particulates from our waste-to-energy facilities, that the people come here and breathe that air. We do have bad air days. Now, I don't know what that means to people that are coming here for respiratory health care, but that statement in itself, we must raise our bar in that regard. So I stress that to you. Any money spent in this area of expansion must be to turn this into an international world-class wellness center. We will get the right people to come here if we do that. I think we must also pay attention that we don't don't lose the landmarks that we have that distinguish us as a community moving forward. We have a few landmarks remaining. We must accentuate those. One is right behind us here at the center that Charlie and Will hopefully are going to return to the amphitheater facing Dr. Will, who was right in alignment facing his sons next to the flagpole that used to face the plumber building. I hope that that can be rekindled once again. With that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next up is Julie Fiesel. Welcome, Julie. And then following, we have, can you read that? Colin Nimley is next. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I am here tonight as a representative of the Rochester Area Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber is supportive of the DMC development plan, and we look forward to the implementation of this plan that will enhance the experience for both residents and our visitors. We look forward to the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cola? And then following Cola is Micah Johnson. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Colin Nimley. I work for the State Council on Black Minnesotans. DMC is an exciting project, yet a very scary one. As you're hearing from the community tonight, you see people that support the project. Not that the people that are bringing concerns to you do not support the project, but they need the reassurance, they need accountability, they need to know that they will have return on their investment. I want to say that over the last few months, the City of Rochester staff have worked very tirelessly to create a targeted group business plan for the city, specifically for DMC. I want you to acknowledge the work that have gone into this project. We, at my office, work with the city staff to try to create a plan that will be more reflective of this community, that creates the mirror that we are looking for, but also bring that vision of building an inclusive community to reality for the city. Accountability is important. We cannot do this work moving forward without knowing, or this board ensuring this community that there will be accountability on anybody that come here to do business for DMC. And how do we create that accountability? We need an agency that will be able to oversee and protect the investment of this community. And that agency could be a regional human rights office here in Rochester, Minnesota. Bringing return on investment. That's a business term, but I think it applies very well to DMC. I don't think anybody living in Rochester will rent a hotel room to go for an appointment at Mayo Clinic. But this community is the one making this project possible. I want you to see very clearly that this community will support you if you protect the investment that they are making and bring them the assets that they need in order to be effective. We all want DMC to be successful. In order for us to do that, we need to build this together. We need to build history together. And how do we do that? We have to work together. DMC will not be successful if it doesn't have the support of the community. The community will not see the return in investment if you, as the board, do not ensure that their investment is protected. So I call on you tonight. You are charged with the responsibility to make DMC successful, but I'm also adding one more responsibility to your list, not that you don't have a long list, but to protect the investment that the community is making. Take seriously the concerns that are coming to you today. Ask the governor, lieutenant governor, that we need an accountable agency here. I want you to take very seriously the work that the staff of the city have invested into this project and reward them accordingly. Give them the support that they need in order to move forward. I don't know if that's going to be monetary or listening to them or incorporating the work that they are doing into this development plan so that it becomes the foundation on which DMC is based. Thank you so much for your work. I hope you consider that if you have any questions or need any help from my office, I'm available to give it to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Micah Johnson. And following Micah Johnson is Nicholas, I believe it says Mucha. Welcome.
Hope this is okay if I pick this up.
You're a little tall, so that's good.
I'm a little tall. The air is thinner up here. I'll be doing this live and without a safety net, so bear with me. I've been to several of these input sessions and I've heard a number of comments by a lot of different people about the sustainability thing. And when I read through the DMC plan, the 100-some pages of it, I see maybe 5 paragraphs dedicated to sustainability after hearing dozens and dozens of people talk about it. Yes, we have this sustainability, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not much. Yes, we have this sustainability committee that we're talking about, and it feels very much like we're pushing this off to the side. Check it off the list, you know, out of mind now. We've got this committee, they're going to deal with this and let them deal with it. Whereas a lot of these people that I've heard speak are asking for sustainability to be folded into the very fabric of every decision that's done, on every part that's done of this, not a group off to the side working on a subgroup. So I think that's important when it comes to the global competitiveness that we're going to be building in. We're going to be determining the global competitiveness of our community, of a variety of industries, and of course the Mayo Clinic. We have a just neighboring city in La Crosse where clinics are, there's a clinic that has gone 100% renewable energy. And I think if we don't build some of that in, we're going to be really hurting our future competitiveness on this. Now, yes, Rochester Public Utilities is putting in 500 kilowatts of solar, I hear. I think that's a great thing. It's a wonderful start. It will take literally tons of asthma-producing particulates out of the atmosphere, and that's a very good thing. But you have to remember that Rochester Power now, not even including all of this, Rochester Power now is, electric power, is measured in the hundreds of megawatts. 500 kilowatts, it's a wonderful, nice start, but I don't want it to be a chance for us to say, check it off the list, it's good, push it off to the side, we're done. It's very important that we don't do that. 500 kilowatts, just to give you an idea of the scale, roughly calculating, that's about 68 homes. That's 2.5 blocks in my neighborhood, built in the 1950s. Oh, sorry, I didn't say 1408 3rd Avenue Southwest. That's 2.5 blocks of houses. This is not a chance for us to say, check it off the list, push it off to the side. And then the other part that's coming up that I feel has been kind of treated in the same way as this district heating system. District heating system, we have one chance to do this very cost effectively. We have one chance when all the roads are going to be torn up. We have one chance when all this will happen. District heating is how downtown St. Paul has been heated since the 70s. This is not new. It's very effective. It needs to use low temperature water, not steam. The current system uses steam, and there are reasons for that for Mayo Clinic and some other purposes, but a highly efficient system will use low temperature water, not steam. So again, we don't want to say, well, we already have this small system, check it off the list, push it off to the side. This will be an economic gain as the money saved involved in heating downtown will recirculate into the local economy many times over, making the downtown area more competitive, more globally competitive, or even locally competitive. The lower costs will be locked in forever. We have one chance to do this, and again, saying we support it in the plan is different than saying we're going to put this in the plan. Saying we support it in the plan is checking it off the list, moving it off to the side, and saying we need to do this and this needs to be integral to the plan is a completely different thing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Nicholas? Is Nicholas here? Not seeing Nicholas. The next up on our list is Randy Staver. And then following that, Council President. I can't quite read. I believe that says Julie Gay, I believe.
Yep. All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'll keep my comments very brief. I think the city has done its due diligence in addressing DMC and its evaluation. Of our own accord, we held a public hearing before our Planning and Zoning Commission and before the City Council, and we took public testimony in that regard. So I think we've done that sort of due diligence, and we very much support what we're trying to accomplish, the vision and the future as DMC plan illustrates. All I can say is we're very supportive, and we would really very much like this to go forward, and we're very excited about the opportunities in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Julie Gay. Is Julie here? Oh, great. Drew Koretsky. Following Julie is, I believe it's Drew Koretsky. Dremel, yeah. Welcome.
Thank you. I am a patient at the Mayo Clinic, as I'm sure dozens of these individuals here have been or currently are. In my particular case, I've been a patient since at least February, and they have absolutely no clue as to what's wrong with me. So consider that in my remarks. I am going to run through just some activities since Saturday in the area where I live, which curiously is within the DMC boundaries. One particular case, a party bus showed up and parked on private property, and nobody knew anything about it. In another case, there was a stabbing in front of a motel. And they had quickly identified that particular set of individuals. In another case, 10 guys show up on nice weather. They run the gamut of just silly fooling around to fighting to putting a female on the ground and holding her down until somebody came out and rescued her. Just this morning, this is an area where there are a lot of bicyclists, late workers, homeless people going through at all times, day and night. Except this morning at 2 o'clock, a guy came through, never seen this type before. He could have been a police officer, but the police officers don't know if he was. Across the street on the corner is the Schafulius building that are going to be demolished, which is perfectly okay, except this morning there's 2 sheets pinned to one of the doors that read and look like gang art. And where that came from, I have no idea. You also have graffiti down near behind Michael's. Some of it is also on the Chateau Theater walls outside. It's pornographic, and it's the kind of thing we don't see here in Rochester. My purpose is not to comment or critique the law enforcement. In the last week, they have been absolutely cooperative and a pleasure to work with. However, they are not even going to get the number of staff that they have already let the council know that they're going to need to take care of the city without considering you guys. And finally, I live in a 16-story HUD building. I love the place, it's well managed, but about half of it is Somalis that the American white folks don't speak to the Somalis simply because they don't speak English and have not made any effort to speak English. And I honestly don't believe they are going to see any part of the DMC realized in their lifetime. We get along well, and hopefully it will continue that way, but I really don't know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is Mr. Koretsky here? Welcome. And then I just would like to, the next person, and as of right now, I believe it's the last person on our list, is Christine Schulze. Welcome.
Hi. Well, it's Dr. Emil Koretsky.
Dr. Koretsky.
And that was pretty good, right? And I went really slow. So
Oh, there you go. I was...
That's okay. I didn't bring, I had a bunch of stuff I turned in, but sitting here and listening, I just wrote down a few things. I'm just going to write down real quickly, but they're concepts and thoughts that I really bring here from the viewpoint of worrying about patients, worrying about people, and the people and the tenor of the people here. So bear with me, and I'll be glad to, maybe if anybody wants any of them, I'll be happy to talk more. So basically, I think a people mover, not the one everybody thinks of with overhead, but the kind you see, for example, in Chicago Airport, O'Hare, other places, on the ground. Because you're going to have distances, people are moving that are disabled, and wide enough so they can handle it. People could use those, and they could be able to cover good distances. In the tunnels, along same example as O'Hare, I would have not just boring lights. I would have lights that have wiggles and squiggles and color and give some light and hope to the people. It's not really complicated, but it will enhance their spirit, and they need it. I think that there should be, at Mayo, I have no doubt about it. Believe me, this is like second guessing the best. I trained here and I lived it, so I know. So nothing, but I think, it will be really good if we had laid out sites of emergency phones, sites of emergency base, maybe like a resuscitation where a medical person could grab it and help somebody, perhaps in and outside, because you can have a vast campus. And with that, with a lot of people who won't be able to get somewhere quickly for help. And it's probably in the master plan. But if I didn't say it, then I wouldn't be a conscientious doc. The streets, I'm from New Orleans, and the streets in New Orleans in the French Quarter are really narrow. And so what they do is, at night, when everyone goes night-night, out come all the commercial trucks, the delivery trucks, the garbage trucks, all that. That's just a thought for if you want to handle a dense situation and not, I mean, nobody who is feeling well likes to have a garbage truck go by. You know, so just a thought there. I think it might, conceptually, perhaps the idea of getting some of the parking out of downtown. Perhaps have a parking lot out by where the big corn thing sticks up, you know, and one out near Silver Lake, a parking building, and perhaps one across Highway 52. The idea being, and as high as you can, you know, in a limited space, so you maximize the use of the space there, and then from those spots, have the people mover above bring people into Rochester itself, the downtown. What a great way to meet Rochester, Minnesota. Let's see. Bear with me. Being from New Orleans, the home of trolleys, and of course you have to accommodate a trolley with winterizing, the term I guess you'd use. But again, people are coming often for the first time. And if they're in the trolley and they have to go down this trolley track and all, and they've got a dreary winter day, it'll be really neat to have a guy in the trolley playing the trombone or a good clarinet, okay, and having some bright things on the walls to really make you feel like, hey, this place is different. You know, this is really a wonderful entree. Let's see. There's a number of open spaces on 2nd Street that perhaps could be utilized. I'm sure things conventional like parking and this may have been thought there, but it would be nice to use maybe some of those spaces for things that we had planned to use downtown, but we could certainly put there to sort of reduce some of the congestion of even the medical things that have to go on, things like I don't know, physical therapy, something else. The point is, spread out a little bit, and that land's there, and you can build it the way you want for what you need for your special medical situation. I mentioned about when you build the parking lots, I noticed some of them are sort of low around here. I know there's a limit, but as high as you can go, and I think we can go higher than this, make use of space. In the various buildings in the whole complex, it would be nice to think about patients. I know there'll be bathrooms. I know the people can get to them. They always have them accessible for disabled. But, you know, the bathrooms should be accessible, but there should be a lot of them, because this is not the usual population. These are the people who have what's called frequency. And when you gotta go, you gotta go. And an unusual excess number of bathrooms that people can get to. And I'm not being funny, especially for ladies. And good signage with it, so you know how to get to one quickly. I think everything should be well lit, especially the people who can't see well, and you'll have a lot of that here. Security is really important, especially at night, obviously, but that should also be well lit. So when you have your security, it should not only be there, but be visible and accessible it's almost a special kind of security you have to have for an area like that, as opposed to way out in the suburbs. I'm almost done. You were talking about diversification. Whoever mentioned it is really on point. You can't, as wonderful, and as much as I love Mayo Clinic, it can't be the only thing in town, because everybody can't fit in there, accommodated in what they're able to do. So I just jotted down a couple of things. One area that we have the talent and the intelligence and the ability to look at is perhaps the world of electronics. We have a lot of people here, but bring in what we need. And the electronics don't have to be just medicine at Mayo Clinic. They can be oriented to vast areas in science. They could be oriented toward agriculture and how it can be better used. And we should be the experts on severe winter weather and how we address that. I trained here. I went back home to New Orleans. I was unfortunately there when Hurricane Katrina came, and I'm back. But I know how important the weather. But when you're in a crisis, and you can have crises up here, what a great, place to have a weather center. You can also diversify in activities. Everybody knows about a good restaurant, but what about having some museums? Perhaps a wax museum of the Mayo Clinic history, perhaps an aquarium, perhaps a museum about entertainment, and you want to promote another industry, restaurants, the industry of restauranting, with not necessarily a museum on science in general. Perhaps expand our art museum. It's wonderful, but it can be, if we're going to go big, we got to go big. And perhaps we have a wonderful children's museum. Perhaps we can adjust it a little bit so that it has sort of like a concept of the world is your oyster kind of thing. All the hopes and opportunities for all people in this country, that's what this country is founded on. And that kind of a museum where they can go and play, but see what they can do in the future. Little bits about what the future can be for them, and hope. And let's see. Otherwise, and then some local, the usual, like a good jazz club, or else a restaurant with a jazz club upstairs, different kinds of restaurants, different formats. I don't want to offend any of the stores here, but really a large, sophisticated sports bar. When I'm traveling a lot, I go somewhere, I look where everybody is, they're usually hanging out there, especially if they're going somewhere before another event. And I hope that helps. I love this city. On one occasion already, the Mayo Clinic has saved my life, and I'm at a point where, all of us want to give back. And I hope some of these ideas, because if you want to make it big, you got to diversify. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Krinsky. Thank you. And now we have Christine Schultz. It's very handy to have the mayor sitting next to me because he knows who everybody is and how to pronounce their names. Unfortunately, I ask a little bit.
Thank you.
I ask a little bit too late every time.
They're going to project something from a flash drive. I've got a couple of extra copies if you want me to hand them up.
Okay. And then following this, we have Sean Kellenkamp. Kettlecamp. I must not have listened well enough.
You're doing great. The last gentleman is a hard one to follow, but I'll try. I'm going to wait a second while they can get it up. They can put it on the second page. My name is Christine Schultz. I'm here as a member of Historic Southwest Neighborhood. I sit on the board, and I also sit on the Development Committee. And I have a request of the board tonight. And I really appreciate all that you've done so far and the great work and where this plan is. And you could just go to the next sheet because that's something I can read. Basically, in the DMC district, there are multiple plans that apply to it, and they've been done sequentially. The first one was the Downtown Master Plan. The second one was the UMR Plan. The third one is the one you're reviewing tonight. And I think what Historic Southwest is observing is that what's happening in development proposals is it's really hard to look at all those plans simultaneously and see how it fits into it. And I'm going to use an example. It's not a criticism of that project. It's just the one we're most currently familiar with. So we've taken 501 on First, which was approved in a preliminary incentive development on Monday and was approved for TIF financing. It sits within the DMC district, and I'd just like to lead you through where it is. And if indeed we requested that anyone who's making a proposal in the DMC district does a preliminary review first with the city, with administration, with staff, with neighbors, about where it is and what the criteria of the plans are that apply to that site. So that's at a preliminary stage before any long-range planning is done. So the one that's right up there now, excuse me, I'm quivering, it's your DMC district, and you're much more familiar with it than I am. If you look at that, if you look down towards Soldiers Field, you'll see two red rectangles. The applicant has two parcels. That is the location of those two parcels and the approximate size. They're good-sized parcels, and they're in an incredible location. So could you scroll up to the next image, please? The one below it. It's located within the Discovery Square district. So it's just above 6th. It sits on 5th Street between 1st Avenue and 2nd Avenue. Those are the approximate size of the parcels. It's one block directly south of Discovery Square. It's on a block called D15, which in terms of the plan is called out as integrated parking for, I don't remember, but probably 800 cars or something like that. But it's called out for integrated parking, and it's called out for, really major development. It's an incredibly prime, beautiful site. And it has access. It's above 6th, which will cross the river. It's right next to the gardens. It's within that district. It's phenomenal. But in terms of reviewing it, this sort of review was never done. So in terms of looking at it, we've been looking at it within our standard maps. What's the zoning? What's the street? And so I'm bringing the request to the DMCC because we're losing opportunities. And we're also not being fiscally responsible in terms of the best investment within the DMC to accomplish the infrastructure that we need to accomplish. We're going to have to be very, very judicious in terms of what we choose to fund and what we choose to promote. So that's those two. Can you go forward? I'll do this quickly now because you got the idea. So I showed it within the transit. And again, you know where it is now. It's within the north-south loop. It's again right above the crossing of 6th Street across the river. Again, an incredible system. If you'll scroll up again, this simply shows, again, within the DMC master plan, it calls for integrated and reservoir parking and gives visual examples of what those look like. The one on the left is integrated parking. The one on the right is the reservoir parking. And you'll see that the Discovery Square is called out new to be constructed 6,565 parking spaces. Discovery Square isn't that big a district. If we lose a block of opportunity, where do we put that parking? Okay, could you scroll up again? Okay, I'm changing to another plan now. So DMC is the latest. The one in between is the UMR plan. So again, UMR did an open space network study, and again, that's the site within the open space network study, which basically shows, again, what an incredible location in terms of the pathways, the rivers, the parks, etc. So then scroll up again. What this shows is the planned UMR campus. And again, it shows approximate blocks where this site is, approximate scale. And again, within this community has never done intense urban development. Mayo, perhaps, is more familiar with it generally, but locally we're not. And so in looking at this site, it was said repeatedly, small sites, we can't do anything with it. They're bridging the alley. It's continuous housing. It's 4 stories of housing above the alley. It's an incredible view corridor. It's an incredible safety issue. And one of the things within the downtown master plan is that for this urban area, I think they call it a mixed-use area in the downtown master plan, we need incredible density. where even within our alleys, everything is an urban front. Everything is a storefront. Everything has signs. Everything has lights. There are mid-block openings. And this block is an incredible time to start doing that. And if we don't do it here, we have to say, when are we starting to do it? Okay, next one, please. And just to give an idea, this is the massing diagram for the first UMR building that they plan to build. And they dealt with what we have called urban village design guidelines. They set back above the 4th floor, so to start creating that pedestrian scale on the streets. That is what they're committed to. And again, that's not what we're asking people in town to commit to. So we've got plans setting guidelines, and we're not directing our, this is a public-private partnership, and we have to figure out how to do it well. Next one, please. This one simply shows the whole campus of UMR as they think it will be built out. And again, their gray down there is their integrated parking. That's their major parking area that's within the campus as it's planned right now. And the hexagonal shape, not quite a hexagon, is again the site that was approved on Monday, which does not accomplish Discovery Square goals. I think that's the last one. Oops, I'm wrong. I apologize. This is fast. That's the Downtown Master Plan District. And again, that's the site within it. You can just scroll quickly. And that's basically the sort of transects, they're districts. And again, you can see the site within the districts, and those districts very much correspond with what's going on in the DMC plan. Okay, within the Downtown Master Plan, what this shows again is their 3D bird's eye view going north toward the city, showing you the site. And one of the things they suggested, because they understood that density will need to increase, and there's an urban village quality that you want, so they suggested, because of wind tunnels and shadow studies, et cetera, that there would be towers at appropriate locations, perhaps going to 8 stories, perhaps 9. On this site, they're showing that setback tower on the northwest corner of the site, which again, for this particular owner, that makes it an incredibly prime site if you start to look at it in a different way. Last one, I think. And this simply shows the neighborhood connections, which again, Historic Southwest is right there, and we're trying to work very hard to positively add to this discussion. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sean Kettlecamp? Okay. Oh, yeah, Christine. And I'd just like to, we have, as far as I know, we don't have any other people that have signed up to speak. So please go forth. Thank you and welcome.
Best for the last, right? I was encouraged to come down and talk to you tonight because this is something that happened actually several years ago, and the mayor was there and many of the city council people were there at that time. But it was approximately 8 years ago that I went to the city hall to actually to make a utility payment, and there was a form on the desk that said that there was a city council meeting, and after I had transacted my business, I said, where is this? When is this happening? And she said, well, it's right down the hall. It's, starts at, 5 minutes from now. I went to my first city council meeting. So during that time, Denny Hansen was still the city council president, and the main issue there was filling out the block between 3rd Street and 4th Street. There were some open areas, but filling that block out with what they call it at that time, appropriate buildings. And the city council president said at that time that he couldn't see putting modern buildings in where the buildings say 1855 or whatever at the top. And they put the edict down to the developer that the buildings that were going to fill out that building were going to be either red or brown brick, low in scale to fit in with that block. And Denny Hansen also at that time was talking amongst the other people that council members, because I think I was the only other person there, and that this was going to be what he called our old town, our dinky town, if, for people that know the University of Minnesota. And there was talk of it being maybe the Firehouse Square because of this was the only original block on the west side of the street that features in all pictures of historic Rochester. Those buildings are all still there. And in any event, that was the talk at that time, and indeed it was done because the buildings were filled out, and it looks terrific, but there's never been any assurance that the other side of the street isn't going to get torn down, or the rest of it. And actually, President Hansen also, when he was talking about this quote-unquote historic area, it was going to go from 2nd Street all the way down to 6th, where the fire hall is now. I haven't been a part of the DMC conversation or anything. This is the first time I've ever come down. I've seen the pictures that have come in the newspaper. It's confusing, but I was thinking, historically, it's like he was talking about a museum. What about a museum of famous Minnesotans so that people can see where the Mayo brothers fit in the pantheon of people that are from Minnesota that, made good. But I think we want to be an upper Midwestern sophisticated city, and you can't have that without some of your historical stuff set aside, protected, so that there's no threat of them being torn down. That's a big issue for a lot of people, and a lot of people that are not here and won't ever come here. But they talk about it a lot. I mean, it's... Anyhow, I think sometimes, this is just my thinking, that whenever you talk about history, historic preservation, and charm and things like that, what I think a lot of people here, maybe the developers, and again, this is my own opinion, is that you're actually taking money out of their pocket, because DMC is a developer's dream. There's something in there for everybody, but the rest of us get left behind because we want to keep some of what we already have. And what we're really asking for in the last analysis is 1/1,000,000th of the building space in this town. And we don't want to see it go away, but they're sprinkled throughout. But when you ask to have them saved, it's just whoa, 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 whoa. Somebody's already got a plan for that block, or there's big money at stake. We want a real, authentic Rochester that everybody can enjoy, and it's, I think, a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. Anyhow, thank you a lot.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you. Yep. Let me just see, is there another? Trent Flugel, welcome. Then I'll see if there's anybody else who has anything else to say. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair and distinguished guests. I will be short because I know it's been a long day for all of you already. I started my day about 13 hours ago by reading Mr. Rybeck's opinion piece in the Star Tribune. And had I had more time today, I might have worked up something about protecting Rochester from the onslaught of economic refugees we're about to see from Wisconsin. But I did not have time to do that. And instead, I shall focus on goals number 2 and 3 from your own document. Goal 2 talks about leveraging public investment. And goal 3 talks about the 35,000 to 45,000 jobs that may become part of this community as a result of this initiative. I should say my name is Trent Flugel. I live at 2647 3rd Place Northeast. My family and I have been members of the community here since 1991. It's been a wonderful place to call home. During that time, I've had the opportunity to work for a number of different social service agencies in town. I was the director of the LINK program when that started, working with homeless youth. I was the director of Habitat for Humanity. I now am the executive director at Family Promise Rochester and our Interfaith Hospitality Network, working with homeless families. But I always tell people that the most impressive thing I've been a part of during my time with Rochester was the 9 years that I spent on the board of the First Homes Initiative. It was an extremely effective response to the last time we had a crisis in housing here. In the fall of 1999, I got a phone call from Steve Thornton, at that time the executive director of the Rochester Area Foundation, and he said, Trent, I'm wondering if you'd like to have coffee and sit down and talk with some other people here in town that want to address housing. Sure. I didn't know who I was going to be sitting down with, but it was an impressive group of people. Among them, Nancy Domeo, Al Tuntland, Al DeBoer, Joe Powers. These were not the bleeding heart liberals that I typically rub shoulders with. These were business people from the community who understood that there was a return on an investment made in the social fabric of our community. They worked very hard. They helped steer some of us who perhaps needed a little steering. And over that next 9 years, over 1,000 units of affordable housing were built in this area. More importantly, a tremendous influx of outside money came into Rochester. That fits in with your goal number 2 of leveraging this public investment. One of the things that a couple of those individuals I mentioned used to say to me was, Trent, how much affordable housing is going to be enough? When will we have enough units? You seem to always want more. And you know, even today, 16 years later, I would have to say that unless we make structural changes, I'll always want more. But you have an opportunity to have an impact on some of those structural changes. You see, there'll always be a need for affordable housing as long as the public subsidizes it and private interest fill it with people working for substandard wages. We'll never be able to meet that need. It will never happen. Every time we invest public money, there should be a requirement that the jobs associated with that pay a wage that will allow people to pay the prevailing entry-level market rate. This past year, my organization worked with about 35 families that were homeless here in Rochester. Only 4 of them came to us without at least one adult having a full-time job. And all of them were employed fully within a week or 2 of coming into our program. Jobs are not the issue. The issue is what they pay and what the market rate is here for rent. I have a lot of respect for my friend Dave Ferber, but unlike Dave, I'm not going to apologize for the number of people from the social service sector that are here. Now, some of you gentlemen are old enough to remember the 60s. None of the women up there, I'm sure, are. But if you need, I'm sure that Mayor Brady would be able to fill you in on the 60s. But what occurred in the 60s was that the people, often led by clergy, rose up and made their needs known. They demanded a change, and the civil rights movement moved forward. Now, I work for probably the smallest agency that spoke here tonight. There's only 3 of us that work there. But I have 1,500 volunteers that are passionate about this issue. And I count how many of you are elected officials. And while you may not have the power to address some of these things through DMC, in some of them you do, you certainly, particularly those of you who sit on the city council, have a way that you can address the wage issues. And all of you in your elected positions will be watched. DMC has ignited the community. It has enthralled people with the potential that is here. And many of us want to assure that those who are often left behind are not left behind this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to just do one call to see if there's anybody else who has something to say. Okay, all right. Just a quick comment.
Promise. I don't know how I missed this, but one of the important things, again, with people coming to Rochester, again, those open plots of land along 2nd Street, before you get into the medical center, it would be nice to have a welcome center where so the trolley comes in, they can pull in there, and they can pull out from there, either going either direction, and also have a place where people can relax after driving a long way, exhausted, they can maybe get a cup of coffee, and they can also have someone coordinate what needs they have. For example, do they need their appointment schedule? Here, it's printed out, here you go. Do you need this? Do you need help with this? Before they walk into this real, they've never been there before kind of thing. And so I think consideration of whatever size it takes, a place where they can get their heads on straight before they get their heads discombobulated. Okay, so just a thought, but I think we shouldn't forget before they get Mayo Clinton.
Thank you very much. All right, I am going to thank you so much, everyone. We are now closing the public hearing. I think everyone who has wanted to speak has had an opportunity to speak. Thanks so much. So, colleagues, I want to just do a quick check-in with you. We have the option tonight of adopting or voting on a resolution for the development plan. And so I'm going to test the waters and see if anybody would like to offer a motion to adopt the development plan. Yeah. Or not.
Yeah. Madam Chair, I'd like to offer a resolution on it, but if I could speak to that for a second.
Yes, certainly.
One of the things that's important about this process is to keep it moving, because I think we all want things to happen. One of the things that's also important about this process is to hear all of this great input and weave it into this work. So I would like to propose that we move forward with this plan, but also give what I think we all know, that the latitude that we have to incorporate this work in. I think we've heard a lot of really important messages about the incorporation of human services into this. We've heard a lot about sustainability, historic preservation, some of these other great ideas. All of those can now be incorporated into the work. I think we also have to get clear, both on this body and with the whole community, about what is the work of the DMs, of this group, and then the city, separating that out. But I would suggest that we move forward with this plan with the clear message to people in the community: there are ways to bring all of this input into this work.
Thank you very much. So there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Colleagues, I wonder if you think it would be helpful in our board packet. We have the resolution. Could I suggest, just for process-wise, that we might just ask our General Counsel, Kathleen, to just remind us of what is in this this resolution, and then we can have a discussion before we vote. Does that seem good? All right.
Happy
Kathleen,
to, Madam
thank you.
Chair. The resolution that is before you has a number of background recitals that basically set forth how we got to where we are now. This draft plan was first published in December. In January, the DMCC amended it and sent it off to the city, and that triggered the 60-day review period that the statute sets forth for the city. The city held 2 public hearings on the plan and ultimately approved it on March 23rd. And so then it's now back to the DMCC. The statute requires us to have a formal public hearing, which has just concluded, that was officially noticed in the Rochester Post Bulletin last week. So then, after you move from the background into the findings of fact, the first finding of fact that's set forth there is the actual DMCC mission statement that has been adopted, that sets forth the mission statement and the goals. So items 2 through 6, actually 2 through 7, actually comply with the statute. The statute requires this board to find that the development plan complies with these objectives that have been set forth by the statute. I won't read them, but what this resolution does is say that the plan that is before you complies with the statutory goals and objectives. And then, so the resolution on the third page resolves that the DMCC board adopts this as a conceptual framework to guide the implementation of this initiative going forward, specifically adopting the official boundaries of the district that are described in the plan, specifically adopts the evaluation criteria that the board amended in January, and so that is what is contained in this resolution.
Thank you. Is there discussion on the resolution? Yes, Ed.
Well, I'll certainly support this tonight. I think that what we're approving tonight is the general concept, and we've heard a lot of detail. We've asked for a lot of people's opinions, and we've heard a lot of input from people, from citizens and community people over the last, for sure, a few months, if not year here. And where we're at now is I think it's important to remember this is a 20-year plan. If we vote affirmative on this tonight, tomorrow's day one of it. So we have a lot of time and work ahead of us. All the input that we've heard from folks is certainly going to be considered. There's a lot of exciting things here, and I think some areas that need work to be done on. So I think that I hope people, if they think that they spoke tonight and asked for changes and didn't see us doing it tonight, doesn't mean that their thoughts won't be considered as we move forward. So with that, I'll certainly support this tonight.
Thank you. Susan.
Yes, I would support the plan as it goes forward tonight as well. There's a lot of excitement, not just in the state, but across the world, watching us in terms of how quickly somebody could invest in this exciting plan. And the plan does give us flexibility to respond to the kinds of details that was discussed earlier. Like Mayor Ryback said, there are certain issues that are addressed by the county or the city and others, and it's not the responsibility of this board. But as far as the overall plan goes relative to the district, we can go ahead and make this decision. I would support this decision, to support this plan.
All right. Any other discussion? Yeah, Mayor Ryback.
Could I just add one other point? I think while many of these things can be woven into the plan, I think calling it a framework is really important, because this is not like we're saying, hey, let's go build this thing. This is saying, this is the framework, let's keep adding on to this. But one in particular where I think the clock is ticking quite a bit is this issue of energy use, and us being in a very aggressive dialogue with utilities in this part of the state, which can be absolutely transformational. And I think the point about the district heating in St. Paul, Mayor Latimer was so incredibly visionary those many years ago when they wouldn't dig up a street without having this bigger vision. And I feel the energy use especially is something that we can be transformational if we act now, and we will constantly be losing our opportunity as the clock ticks. So I just want to mark that I think that's something we should especially be focused on.
Thank you. Mayor, do you want to say anything?
Well, obviously, I think I can say obviously I support this, and I think some of the things that were talked about tonight, and when I'm just looking at some of the notes back on February 23rd, where again this, and Mayor Ryback just touched on it, it's a framework. And we use that word often in there. It's limited to a conceptual framework. Another one that we heard about the boundaries, and it talks in here that they are adjustable. And I liked it. It said should be considered sufficiently nimble. So that was another phrase in there. So it's an exciting time and a great time that I think as Mr. Ruska said, the clock will start now that we will, assuming, approve that tonight.
Great. So seeing no further discussion from the board, I would like to just wrap up by saying a couple of things. First of all, I would like to thank and acknowledge the representatives from the EDA that are in the audience today, Jeff Bolton and Lisa Clark. Thank you so much for all of your work. I believe Peter Cavallari is here in the back, who was very instrumental in the leadership of putting this development plan together. So this it's a kind of a milestone evening for Peter, very much so. I also like to just note, in addition to Council President Staver, that Council Member Bilderbach is here. I think you've been to pretty much every single one of our...
Means is here.
Oh, and Sandra Means is here too. I hadn't seen her. And I want to also just acknowledge Commissioner Sheila Cascaden, who joined us tonight, and I know from personal experience cares very deeply about the social services issues that that people raise today, and I'm looking forward to working with you on that. And I saw in the background Senator Nelson, I think, was here, though she may have stepped aside. So I think I just wanted to say thank you, all of you, for being here. There's a word that just is in my mind as I've been listening to everything that all of you in the audience have been talking about, and also echoed up here on our board, which is the word potential. And I think we all really feel it. There is this tremendous potential, tremendous opportunity, and the framework for that opportunity is captured in this development plan, which I think we're going to be passing tonight. But it is really going to be up to all of us to make sure that we realize that potential. And it won't happen just with the 7 of us up here, or however many there are. It will happen because we realize the potential of working closely with members of the community, with Mayo Clinic, with the county and the city, with the Sierra Club and Conservation Minnesota, with diverse communities in Rochester. With the historic preservation community in Rochester, which feels so passionately and so rightly that this plan is going to be exceptional if we marry it with what is already exceptional about Rochester, and not try to create something completely new and separate from that. And it's going to be up to us to figure it out. And I can only tell you that I bring great optimism and great hope and a huge amount of energy. I know that that's reflected by my colleagues here, that we're gonna do it. And there was the word, I think the word accountability was also either said explicitly or implicitly in many of your comments. And I respect that, because I think we need accountability amongst all of us to make sure that we do come together to realize the potential of this plan. And I'm really excited to do that work with everyone in this room. So with that, unless there, yes, Ed,
Madam Chair, I'd just
please.
like to thank you for your leadership through this process.
Yep.
You've done a great job.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Seeing any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of Resolution A, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Good.
Thank you very much.
We're rolling.
The next regular meeting of the Destination Medical Center Corporation will be next Thursday, April 30th at 9:30 in the morning. I look forward to seeing you all there. And with that, we are adjourned.
Next week.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
That works.